Welcome to this episode of How Would You Rate Your Pain? I'm so excited for you to hear our guest today, Michael Crosa, describe his experience having Tourette syndrome. Just a heads up, there are a few expletives, and so if you're listening with little ones around, you might want to pop in those headphones. But stay tuned, enjoy the episode. I think you're really going to enjoy his story.
There wasn't really a lot of fear necessarily.
Yeah.
But it just, it was just really, I remember it being really odd and like wasn't really able to focus. I mean, I'm an easily distracted guy anyway, but like it wasn't, I wasn't able to focus in class. I was just kind of like thinking, like watching like that.
Almost watching yourself. Hello and welcome to How Would You Rate Your Pain? We will be exploring life, loss, love, and the power of resilience. I am Dr. Tiffany Bartell. Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Hello, and welcome to another episode of How Would You Rate Your Pain, the podcast that explores life, loss, love, and the power of resilience. I'm your host, Tiffany Bartell, and I am excited today to be here with my friend, Michael Crosa.
Hello.
So glad you're here, Michael.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk about something that affects over 1.4 million people in America, Tourette syndrome.
Yeah.
So before we delve in, Michael, I'd love for you to tell listeners a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
Because I feel like if I introduce you, I'm just going to be like, Michael's wonderful and he's so like caring and gentle and empowering. And
thanks.
So I feel really privileged for listeners, and I've told you and Trey this, to be here with both of you today because my entrance into the world of podcasting, I'm a therapist, and this is all new to me, but I feel like you guys are kind of my big brothers. And so Trey's on the other side of the window recording, and Michael's right here. And so this feels really fun to have you here. So
well, good. I'm glad.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm I did kind of introduce you anyway, but
well, hey,
yeah.
And it was like an emotional introduction, right?
Yeah.
So I think, so we know each other, and that Trey and I are your podcast team,
Yes.
podcast big brothers.
Yes.
Trey with the equipment in the studio, and me with the editing in the background, the background stuff. So I started podcasting during the pandemic, which at this point was, I guess, 4 years ago. Yeah, because we're coming up on March.
I can't even
March
believe
2024.
that. Starts tomorrow, yeah.
So for me during quarantine, it was a way to stay connected with friends during a very isolating time. And we, at the time, we had this project called Jollyville Radio that was a lot of fiction skits and voice acting and a lot of fun. It was
very cool project. Yeah. I've only heard that snippet you shared at the one event, but it sounded like so much fun. So much work.
Thank you. Yeah. Well,
so
that was
fun.
the thing. Yeah. It was a ton of work. And so now I'm, fast forward through a lot of things, but here kind of helping to really push the podcasting community in Chattanooga, and that's a ton of fun. And so that's me. Podnooga Network.
Podnooga Network. Look it up.
Video.
Yeah. So tell me, like, what do you think people don't know about Tourette's?
Yes.
There's a lot of misconceptions.
There are.
And it kind of gets like thrown out there, casually, kind of the same way people are like, oh, I'm so bipolar, or my mother-in-law's a narcissist, or, whatever. I think people kind of misuse the word.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of like lack of understanding about the condition.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I think one of the big questions that I even remember having this question before I even developed Tourette's is, number one is like, it is... So it lives somewhere between the conscious and subconscious, in that I am aware that I'm having these movements and I'm doing them, but I'm not doing them intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people think like, oh, maybe it's like a behavioral condition that people don't like understand that curse words are bad or something like that. It's not really that. Mm-hmm. It's also not like your heart beating is a truly involuntary muscle, right?
Yeah.
It's more voluntary than that.
Yeah.
But it's also not as voluntary.
Like walking.
Right. Yeah. It's not like the words coming out of my mouth are very voluntary words. You know what I mean? So it's like somewhere in between there. I think that's a pretty big misconception. And the other is that there's a huge variety of what it looks like.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
not just saying obscenities
right,
involuntarily.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so the definition, at least as far as I understand it, is that there are physical tics and tics as in like, like nervous tics, and it's another term that gets thrown around a lot. But I also kind of like in a real way, like, so just some kind of involuntary movement. So physical tics, vocal tics, and onset before the age of 18.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a real simple kind of thing. And like
Criteria.
none of that is like, oh, Tourette's means that you have this chunk of your brain missing or something, right? It's not that. It's just like a collection of symptoms, really. And so the physical tics tend to be the most common, both with people with Tourette's and just sort of in people in general population. And so for me, like you'll notice like my face twitches a lot, and maybe have like an arm or a shoulder or something like that. Vocal tics have to do with making noise, and those are more rare, both kind of in general and then also for me. Like we probably won't hear one throughout this episode. But that tends to be, that could be like sound, like quick sound, but whatever. Sometimes I've whistled. That used to be a pretty common one for a while. And then there are some of the more extreme cases of full-on words, whether they're just sort of normal or inappropriate or things like that.
So it's very individual.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that's what I've seen in my clients, is that there's such a spectrum of, characteristics or things that you experience, but then there's different combinations as well. So just because someone has Tourette's doesn't mean you really know what they're experiencing.
Right, what it's going to be like. Right. And it's very variable on day, season of life, like all
stress,
that kind of stuff.
Tired.
Bingo. Exactly. It's very different. Yeah.
So what was kind of like your journey of like being diagnosed with Tourette's or realizing that something was happening?
Yeah. So most people that have Tourette's, their story is that it kind of slowly developed in childhood, and that their parents started noticing like, oh, what are you doing? That kind of thing. For me, it was very different. So it happened very suddenly in my junior year of high school on March 16th, 2007.
Wow. Okay.
I know the date, right? That's rare.
Yeah.
And it's not that's not when I got the diagnosis. That's when I had the first twitch. And I remember I was in high school at the time, came back from lunch. That's another thing. It's not overnight. It was over lunch.
Okay.
Sat down at my desk, and like my arm shot out to the side. And I remember thinking, I was like, did it even happen? Did I do that? I know it. Yeah, I know it happened.
Yeah.
Did I mean to do that or whatever? And I even remember asking the person next to me, like, did you see that? And, to the outside observer, yeah, sure, whatever. You moved your arm. But, and then my nose started twitching, kind of doing like the bunny rabbit thing. And
just all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's when I was like, something's happening here. And then, just sort of the rest of class and the rest of the day, just kind of sitting there witnessing my body, and like different stuff would happen. Like this arm would go and that. And it was weird because it was like, I'd realize, like, I'd think about like, well, my left arm twitched that time, like, is my right hand going to twitch? And then a few seconds later, like, sure enough, and we'll get into why that is later.
Okay.
But, but all this, and it's like, oh man. And so.
Do you remember how you felt? Like, was you curious or?
It was curious. It wasn't really a lot of fear necessarily.
Yeah.
But it just, it was just really, I remember it being really odd, and like, wasn't really able to focus. I mean, I'm an easily distracted guy anyway, but like I wasn't able to focus in class. I was just kind of like thinking, like watching, like
almost watching yourself.
Going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So I went to the next class, which was the last class of the day, and it was music theory, and I was pretty close with my band director anyway, and I think he kind of realized like something's wrong. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't just happen, right? Yeah. And my mom happened to work at the high school, and so he drove me down to her classroom, and I remember kind of going in and hey mom, she's like, what is it? I'm kind of twitchy, I think, I don't know. She's like, okay, let me finish this email. And so I sat down, and my foot started tapping on the floor, and she says, can you stop that? I'm trying to focus on the email. And I said, no, that's what I'm talking about. And that was her face.
And she's like, email.
Oh, right.
Not
yeah.
important.
Like,
yeah. Okay.
Time to go to the ER.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah. So that was sort of like that initial moment that, and it took a while to figure out what was going on. We had to go to a lot of different kind of doctors because again, that's not really how Tourette's presents.
Right. So did you have to have like CT scans?
Yeah,
and,
they
like,
did all the things, and that's the other thing about Tourette's. Those all come back clean.
Right.
There's no test. It's just sort of a list of symptoms, and and also another thing that was weird about my own story is that for the first few months it was only the physical tics, which I think apart from not looking like regular Tourette's already, like there are a lot of things that cause involuntary physical movements, right? Bad medication reactions or other, just other things and stuff, right? And so there was a lot that they had to work through and rule out.
So you just like ruled out for like months and months.
Okay. And
even
got to the point where I got an appointment at the National Institute of Health, which is like, it's not really a hospital. It's like that's where they handle medical, national interests, medical mysteries, right? So yeah, and they have specifically a movement disorder clinic, and so got an appointment there. And remember, like it was like the doctor will come meet with the patients, and then interview, do whatever. Then all the doctors in the clinic will come together over kind of the lunchtime-ish, talk about their cases, discuss what they got to discuss, and then, come back and talk or whatever. And so, did that. They even brought me into that room with all the doctors and people asked me some questions.
And you're a junior in high school.
Yeah. And again,
that's
it was
a
like,
moment.
It didn't feel, well, by that point we were a few months into it. And again, it didn't, I don't think I thought of it as scary. I know my mom was scared as shit because again, like, and she's like kind of medically inclined. Well, she is a doctor now, which is cool.
That is very cool. Yeah.
But I mean, I think she was aware of what neurologically that could mean, right? Brain tumors, right. And I just thought, I was like, hey, cool, look, I'm touching. Yeah. So anyway, But yeah, so did all that, did the doctor stuff, and they did the thing, and they came back to the room, and doctor says, you have a tic disorder. I said, oh, cool, which one? They're like, no, that's the diagnosis. You have a tic disorder.
Okay.
I'm like, right, yeah, exactly. That was my reaction.
Like, what does that mean, and what does my life look like? And,
right. It's like that doesn't mean anything. And
it's like someone being like, oh, you have a stomach ache. So
right, yeah, officially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then a couple weeks later they called back and they were like, hey, we were running the footage and we kept talking about it, and like, we decided that you have Tourette's.
Okay.
Which again, also, there's no tests. It's just sort of a checklist,
right? And it's like a rule out, and you end up there with the cluster of like these 3 criteria and symptoms. That's so interesting.
Exactly. And right around that time is when my vocal tics started up anyway. So it kind of started to look more like traditional Tourette's, we'll call it.
Okay.
And so I think, but my personal takeaway from that moment was that, like, there's not like an official test, there's not an official whatever, and really in that case, like, having a name for it doesn't mean anything other than it did give me a name for it. It when I'd be like walking down the halls and doing something, someone's like, what? Rather than, because before I just say like, I don't know either. It's like, what does that even mean? You don't know either.
You're like, now, I mean, welcome to my world.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm just doing this. Then now it's like, oh, it's a thing. There's a there's a doctor involved. And by the way, too, like at the time, my Tourette's was like very extreme, way more than it is right now. So like, arm would be flailing for like a minute at a time. I was shouting like gibberish words in the middle of class. I would have the curse words.
Okay.
So it was all over the place.
And just all of a sudden.
Just flipped a switch.
How did your teachers and peers respond to that?
So I think part of the benefit of being in high school at the time was that sort of past well, yeah, I mean, I had kind of passed those like terrible middle school years.
Yeah.
And at that point, there was sort of this feeling of like, well, geez, it could have happened to any of us.
Okay.
Right.
So there was like a little bit more like empathy.
Yeah.
Or empathy adjacent feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, I mean, so halfway through junior year, so I had already been at the high school for 2.5 years. You know, people knew me. I had the social structure, like all of that was already in place. And I think they even sent if I remember right, the school sent a letter to all of the parents and just said like, hey, just want to let you know, like this kind of medical mystery happened, but you know, it's isolated incident. Like, there's nothing in the water. You don't have anything to worry about.
My goodness. Okay.
And, you know, and I mean, all of that stuff was like, stuff I was cool with, right? It's not worried about it, but it's, you know, that's just sort of what it was. And the teachers were all very, again, my mom was a teacher there at the time.
That's helpful.
And
they knew you. You'd been there. They knew who you were as a student, as a person. Yeah.
And I remember the first time that I had, that I did have a curse word. It was like we just finished up band class and everybody was packing up their instruments. It was kind of loud and it's just like shit. I said that, and my friend Fletcher, who, over in the trombone section, just kind of looked over at me, and we kind of made eyes, and was like, "It happened." You know?
Okay.
He's like, "Oh boy."
Yeah.
And we just had to, because like otherwise at high school people are saying stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But like. He do. And then for the next 2 days, I was saying shit about every 5 or 10 seconds. And yeah, it was.
How was that for you?
Still just wild, curious.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's, you know, at that point I was already, it was already happening so frequently that I was already used to making loud noises or, you know, unexpected things or whatever.
Yeah.
And the next teacher didn't, you know, just did his best to get through, you know. I mean, that day of statistics
You're like
ruined.
speaking up during lecture.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I remember like during a break, like somebody coming over in just the nicest way and being like, I'm so like excited. I've always wanted to know somebody with Tourette's. I've always been so curious. And I mean, she meant it so genuinely like, I just wanted to let you know that like, I like, you know,
This
I'm
is
glad
great for
we're
me.
Friends. Yeah, I'm glad for And I mean, it was supportive. It's hard to tell that story with like emphasizing how supportive that moment was.
Good. But there was like a range of emotions, and it sounds like people were generally turned towards you, not away, and, you know, really understanding and like kind of experiencing it like alongside you of like, oh wow, this is
that's a great
so
way to say
different
it.
And so you know, unusual. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's high school.
Yeah.
So then college.
Yeah.
Was the first time then really, about 1.5 years, 2 years in, that was the first time that I really had the experience of meeting new people, you know, just with Tourette's. Yeah. And all this stuff. And it was a really big identity challenge because I think in high school it was pretty clearly something that had happened to me. Right. Yeah. And now I just was me. Right. It's just kind of this one thing. And so that my freshman year of college, I remember doing a lot of things of like trying to figure out, because like, again, at the time it was pretty pronounced. Yeah. And so like I was on the drum line at UNC. And by the way, when we're talking about Tourette's and, you know, it's like everything's an SNL skit, right? You know, the drum line guy and there's a guy with Tourette, right? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, but point being is that was a group of people, right? A group of people that was that I was kind of being part of for the first time. And so how do you do, like, obviously something's up with that guy, right? Mm-hmm. And how do you introduce that? And so I remember just like, if I bring it up in conversation with one person, that will be how I tell the rest of the group, because they're gonna you know, and kind of use everybody's creativity. So like you had to like almost develop
like a communication strategy of like, gotta like address the elephant in the room.
Right.
It seems like the easiest way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so if I brought it up in conversation with this one person, then by the end of the week, like everybody had the word, you know, had the words for it. Mm-hmm. And other things like, you know, a common icebreaker where you got the question ball and you toss in the thumb and that's a question. Whatever the question was, I would just invent a question that I could answer with Tourette's. And
okay.
Right, and
Yeah.
there are kind of these other ways that I could introduce it to the group.
That's a bit of work to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much work to go to college and try to introduce yourself just as a person.
Yeah.
And then to have to like say, okay, I also have to broach this as well. That's a lot.
Yeah. And so the freshman year was a lot of grappling with, and then also figuring out like how do I do that in classes of I'm in a class with like 200 people in it, and I'm the guy yelling shit, and or whatever it is. How do I talk to the professor? Because the other thing too is like with talking to professors and academic stuff is like there's a pretty standard menu of like disability accommodations, extra time on tests or that kind of thing. And it's like, I'm not really asking for anything.
Right.
I just sort of need you to know this.
Don't mind me. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I just need you to and also like now I know that there's a standard list of menu, but I don't really know. I don't know. I'm figuring this out as I go.
Accommodations have come a long way too.
Yeah.
From the time that you entered college. So
it's
a different process. I work a little in higher ed, and so it's very different.
Yeah.
Oh, you do too. Okay,
yeah. So that.
Yeah. So kind of like the classroom and like just all these different scenes.
Yeah.
So how was that for?
I think
how were you
it took me a while to figure out, to get the routine down of figuring out how to just say it very matter-of-factly of like, hey, this is a thing about me. I don't really need anything. I just want you to know that this is a name for it. I'm not intentionally being disruptive or like whatever. I also found or kind of figured out that separate setting for testing was great.
Yeah.
So I would just go take the tests at the disability center. They had like a little testing room, and there again with the kind of standard, like all the people who needed that time and a half were in that room. And so when I showed up the first time, I was like, oh guys, this is not the separate setting. Okay. This is worse actually. Cause I'm like
if they need a place where there's no distractions.
Right.
I'm a little distracted.
This is the whole reason I'm here. So anyway, so we ended up finding.
So it was a process of figuring out.
Yeah. It was a process. And then my sophomore year is really where, kind of the identity shifted, and I was able to find. I haven't told this story in a while. Let's go. Let's do it.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
So I was an RA.
Okay.
And one of the there's a lot of like in RA training. There's a lot of like identity work and stuff that goes into the training because that's part of the job, right?
Yeah.
It's you're there during a lot of adult development stuff, but. One of the, we had just done a whole day about identity, and I remember that it tended to be around like race, religion, like some of that kind of stuff, and disability really didn't come up. And so that was the whole day, and then at the end of the day, we did this exercise with the staff. It was about maybe 20, 25 people. Write down 10 things that identify you. So, okay, I've got a nice smile. I've got a good sense of humor. I've got Tourette syndrome. I'm from Asheville. I'm, whatever, all these things, right? Okay, cool. So 10 things. Do you know this exercise?
No.
Okay.
No.
I don't even know if it's a great exercise in hindsight, but this is what we're doing. So, okay, so you got these 10.
We'll debate later.
Yeah, we'll debate later. Cross out 5. Okay. Like the bottom 5. Okay, nice smile, sure, whatever, we'll get rid of that one. Kind of go through. And then cross off 2 more. And now cross off 2 more until you're left with 1. And that was Tourette syndrome. Mm-hmm. And so like it was this really visceral experience of like going through the day, learning all this like really important stuff about identity and whatever, and not feeling represented. Yeah. And then seeing now this list of 9 really good personality traits that were crossed out, and Tourette syndrome was left. And when it, got around to my turn to share, it was just it was a huge emotion. I mean, snot, ugly crying, like in front of this group of people who I'd known for a couple days, and just talking about, just that feeling of like, gosh, this felt like it's trapped me. And so that was a pretty big defining moment. And I think that's sort of where where the next phase started of really being able to integrate it into kind of who I was in a positive way and own it and claim it. And, you know, I talked a little bit about, I got to be a guest speaker for a lot of the psychology department. Just one day I just sort of like offered a professor, I was like, hey, I kind of want to try public speaking. Like, you know, if you ever want this, I'm here for it. And they responded. They were like, yeah,
So
you know,
amazing.
come in for a half day. And
that's like everybody's like nemesis is public speaking. And yeah, I love how you just like dove into that.
Yeah, I just went into it. And well, part of the reason I can't, I think there was a stand-up comedy. That's how it really started.
Okay.
My dad kept telling me I needed to get in to try public speaking. He's like, God, the disability guys, they clean up, man. You make good money.
Okay.
And so I was like, how do you even practice? How do you start that? How do you even try it? And I saw a flyer for a stand-up comedy competition. It was like, you get 3 minutes. I was like, oh, great. So here, I mean, they're not vetting anybody, so I can just talk for 3 minutes about whatever the heck I want. Who cares if I do well or not in the competition? And so I wrote a few jokes kind of from my perspective of Tourette's and got to.
You're very funny, by the way.
Oh, thank
like
you.
you can make a career. Like before we started, you asked me a knock choke that didn't even have an answer, and I already started laughing. So I would have totally attended your open mic.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how did it go?
It went well, and I mean I didn't win, and that didn't. Who cares, right? It wasn't what I was there for.
You did it.
But that was sort of that first step, and then I was like, okay, I can do this. If I could do that, I can do the next step. And so, so then I tried reaching out to the professors, and they were into it. And the first one, it was like, you can have half of the lecture to kind of give this like kind of patient's perspective story. And so I went in, I was doing it, I was having a great time. My dad flew in from Florida to come sit in the back of the room.
Oh, yeah.
And next thing I know, like people were getting up. It was like, it was the whole class had gone by. I got so invested, and the professor was like, this is great. Keep going. Yeah, you know, people were asking questions. It was a lot of fun. And so then I started doing that a lot. And I think the psych majors probably got tired of hearing me in all of their classes.
I bet they didn't.
But it's about me. So, you know, it's fine. But anyway, so some of the research that I'd done at that point, that was another part of just kind of owning it. It was like, well, I'm going to go, I've got a library here. I'm going to go look up the articles and the research and, you know, check out the scientific research about it. One of the things that I saw was that the best treatment is education, because it has to do with anxiety. And that's part of the reason, part of the mechanism for where those curse words come from, is that like the brain kind of, you get in this anxiety cycle of like, oh no, what's the worst thing to say right now?
Okay.
You know, whatever, bombing an airport or something. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you would never say bomb outside of the airport. That would never be a tick, but it just happens to be, you know. So anyway, and so by educating yourself, you become more knowledgeable and less worried about it. And then by educating others, you both reduce kind of
your fear of their reaction and the reaction.
Both your fear of it and their actual reaction, and you build allies, and then you feel more comfortable, and that
it's a feedback loop, right?
Yeah,
like
bingo.
the lower your anxiety is, the more resourcing you've done, the less anxious you are, the less it's happening. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly. And so all of that just really was good. I got involved. I got to be a camp counselor at Camp Twitch and Shout. That exists. That's real.
What?
Yes.
This is amazing.
Yeah, that was a really fun experience, because I got to kind of be sort of like a mentor figure, and you know, to some younger kids, and and then you know, over time, you know, those are kind of the big story points, I think, because that's really when the symptoms themselves were pretty extreme. Then as an RA, I continued a career in higher ed and did like student affairs and stuff like that.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And then, I think kind of just like over time, naturally, like as I just sort of owned it and all this stuff, it like really, the symptoms started to fade. And I tried a few medications pretty early on in the process, but it's like, man, the side effects are equally as disruptive as the ticks. So like, why bother?
Yeah.
I'll just own it. I'll just learn, you know, figure out how to own it. And not to say that, like, I mean, that may not work for everybody.
Right. But for you.
For me.
And your symptoms.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of what I did. And I always loved working with students in crisis, because I guess I saw myself, or like I just kind of knew how impactful that time of life could be, of, you know, that 19 years old trying to figure out how do I,
absolutely,
you know, how do I exist in society with, you know, like all of that was, it was such an impactful time for me. And so then it just, so anyway, so got to the point where in 2018 I was working at University of Texas in Austin as a crisis case manager.
I love this.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't know this about each other, but a large portion of my career has been working in higher ed as a college counselor, and then doing a lot of the crisis calls and on call and things like that. I'm not doing that right now, but
how cool.
Yeah. So we're twins.
Twinsies.
Yeah.
So I was
I love that work. It's so good.
Yeah. So I was on the non-clinical side. So probably how we would have interacted is like, like when they get discharged. And I mean, you probably already know this. I'm just saying this like for listeners, but like, you know, somebody's discharged from the hospital after a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
They start at my office. We kind of go over like, okay, what happened? What do we got to do?
What's your resources?
What are your resources? Let's do the check. Okay. Are you connected with the counseling center? No. Cool. Let me take you to my friend Tiffany. You know, you do all that kind of stuff. And then you would take over the long term, and I would maybe check in with them every so often just to make sure. And that was the kind of work that I was really excited to do. And
and to be able to like be present in those like spaces and be like that calm person who can see what, like, you can almost look at them and see what their life is going to look like past this point. Like, this is a moment in time. They're going to figure it out. And like, I can see you in that role.
Oh, thanks.
I love that. I hate that we didn't get to work together.
I know, right?
But we're here now.
Yeah, we're here now. Yeah, we are working together. Yeah. So that it was a hard job.
Yeah, I bet.
And I happened to remember in October of 2019 was my last like really big Tourette's flare up, and I think it was a combination of, I mean, it's a stressful job.
It is
a very
stressful job.
And especially because it's like what the job is like arriving at the moment of crisis and then leaving before it gets solved, and then entering another moment of crisis and leaving before it gets solved. And so there's just like so much stress and unresolved tension. And then there was just some other kind of life circumstances and, you know, whatever, all of this like big stress piled up. And I just had like, it was just like really extreme, like a lot of very strong kind of painful, not that the tick itself is painful, but like, you know, that doing the same motions over and over gets exhausting. And just the loud yelling. And oh, by the way, just disclaimer is like, when I'm talking about my Tourette's, I choose not to like censor or filter or anything like that.
No censor or filter needed.
So and that's my disclaimer to say that when I lived in Texas, like when I was in the grocery store, I would have this tick to say faggot over and over. And like, that's not a word that I feel comfortable saying outside of that. And that's why I say the disclaimer of like, I wouldn't say that ever.
But like you said, your brain goes to like the
worst possible thing
that you are like, I would never say this in this setting or never say this word at all. And it's like,
right. Exactly. Exactly. Because I would never say this, I'm now involuntarily saying this over and over again.
That's hard.
And again, because
so like
it's that
emotionally
anxiety,
exhausting a little bit, physically exhausting a lot. And
and it's not like I can go home and let it out all at home and then go to the store, because it only comes out at the store. It only happens because I'm at the store. So,
and that's not one of those places where you could do your strategy of like, I call it in.
Yeah, let me get on the loudspeaker.
Yeah. By the way, everyone.
Right. Yeah. Tourette's on aisle 3. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's hard.
Yeah. And I remember taking a day where like, because again, I knew that like it wasn't really going to help to take a day off of work.
Because it wasn't going to happen on your day off.
It wasn't really going to happen on the day off. And also just like, being stuck at home, like calling out sick with Tourette's just sucks. Yeah. It sucks because the whole reason I'm calling out is because it's like kind of not good to be yelling in a crisis office. And I don't, you know, just being at home alone doesn't feel good.
Just gives you a chance to just think about just that.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so I like, we had I think I took my day off, or it was a work from home day or something, but I still went into the office anyway and just like shut the window, turn the lights off, put earplugs in, and just like was as slow as possible. Cause I mean, it was to the point where like simply like getting up to walk to the bathroom, like that amount of physical stress, which is none, practically none, was enough to like just trigger some additional tics and stuff like that. And so that was the last time that it was really a huge thing. And that's almost funny because like my wife has never seen me have a serious, you know what I mean? Like, so, and so just thinking about that now, and a lot, you know, now that I've moved to Chattanooga, most people here haven't seen me have a significant, or, you know, a severe bout of Tourette's or anything like that. So it's kind of funny to think about. I was like, you know, most people think of me as probably not even having Tourette's. Like maybe he's just kind of blinky. But, you know, I know. I feel
you
it.
know,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's so much space for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say is been like the hardest part about this journey? Because I mean, I think that, you know, one of the things we talk about here a lot is like, you know, the power of resilience. And I love the fact that you kind of just rolled in pretty like, you know, like, what is this? You know, like, and like your environment supported that.
Yeah.
But there were also times it was really like difficult and exhausting and disruptive.
Yeah.
You know, going to doctor's appointments is disruptive to a high school student, you know, and having to like talk about extra things. I mean, I feel like there's already enough work in that stage of adolescence, you know, and emerging adulthood. Like you don't need extra work to do. So as you think about what was some of the hardest parts about having Tourette's for you?
Some of the hardest parts, you know, I think, kind of like we were saying, the continuousness of feeling the need to explain it. And I can say that past tense now. I think if I were to have another severe outburst next month and you know, outbursts, I'm thinking about that on like a kind of like a week scale, right? Like maybe it's a week long or something that, I'll be right back there. You know what I mean? So there's that.
So it's the knowledge, maybe knowing like what it felt like for it to happen.
Yeah.
And that it kind of is your companion, you know? Yeah. Obviously you have so much education and resources and ways to balance your life, you know, to kind of keep it, you know, at a manageable level. But that knowledge is a lot.
I've got two stories coming to mind. One is on your question. One is a very fun story that is not. I am
always here for your fun stories.
So the first story, around asking like a difficult part, and a part that so we talked about before we started recording this organization, Mankind Project, who you're going to have on in a few episodes, which we're very excited for.
Yes, stay tuned, guys.
So part of that's a organization that's all about like positive masculine identity and like you know, kind of owning like I am a man and what does that mean, and you know, all these strong positive ways. That was sort of around that like post-college, still figuring out adult life with Tourette's and all that kind of stuff phase. And also I evolved from relying on like the question ball and stuff and just kind of owning it when it's like we go around the room and say stuff. I hadn't quite got to the point where I'll just like not ask permission to tell people that I have Tourette's. So still kind of in that like asking for permission stage. Yeah. And so with this men's organization, a lot of the stuff is very not scripted, but structured. There we go. Very structured. Mm-hmm. And so I would ask, this happened maybe like 2 or 3 times where I would ask the leader, I would say like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, by the way, you know, if during the thing, if I get, you know, whatever, it's just Tourette's. Also, like, it would mean a lot to me if you would give me 10 seconds to just explain that to the group. Which, to their credit, in that situation, they're dealing with a lot of people who have a lot of things going on, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of people heard that as in like, hey, I need pity for 10 seconds, right? I think that's what they kind of thought I was talking about. And so they were like, nope, look, you're good here, man. You don't need to explain that. Like, you just come as you are. And it's like, no, actually, I've had very bad experiences because people didn't know
Yeah.
You know, people thought I was
took it the
making a
wrong
joke,
way.
and so by joining the joke, then now they're otherizing me and all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so all I got to do is just say the word, I have Tourette's, ask me questions later. That's it. And like, but they didn't really see that. And so I had to get kind of confrontational about it.
Yeah. Which is something with people with disabilities have to do, like, so much. Like, we just make it so hard for them to say what they need to say, or get what they need to get, or have a ramp, like, you know, just do the things.
It's like don't assume you know what I need.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I totally understand why you assume what I'm. Anyway.
Yeah.
And so after that you know, that was a difficult experience, and
that was like a weekend, right? Or that event that you were attending was
it happened a few times. It happens.
Okay.
It happened a few times. But from that, what I did was like just stopped asking permission. Who cares? Who cares if you get 10 seconds? I can take 10 seconds, right?
I love that.
And so there's almost always a point where you go around the room and at least say your name, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Michael. Oh, by the way, guys, I have Tourette, so I just want to let you know. It makes me feel better for you to know that.
Yeah.
Next.
I love that. Take those 10 seconds.
Yeah, take it.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
And if they're mad, they can be mad.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
they're the ones who would have been mad if you didn't tell them and something happened, and irrelevant.
Exactly. So that's, I think that's been a positive experience. And now just this particular season of life, I don't have, it's mild enough that I don't really have to. If anything happens, like, it's fine, I'll just deal with it. But yeah.
Okay, so what's the fun story?
Excuse me. The fun story, which will lead to another. Oh, I get so excited about going in rabbit holes.
I love it.
Okay, so this would have been a couple years ago. One of the things I love to do is going to movie theaters, which, by the way, is very difficult for people with Tourette syndrome.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Again, this is just sort of not a problem for me at this particular stage of life, but and I used to like to go by myself, like just go on Wednesday night was go to the movie night.
I love it. Yeah.
And one day I was watching a movie, and all of a sudden, like, kind of in like a weird part of the movie, or a very random, unassuming part of the movie, I hear from the back of the theater, nipples. And I was like, and it wasn't. It had nothing to do with what was
right. And you're like, I hear you.
Oh my god, yeah. And
so,
and I'm like trying to look up, and because I don't want to be that guy also in the movie theater who's like, who said that? Right. But so anyway, so I kind of like got my target, and end of the movie, credits roll, and I like bust up there, and I'm like, Does somebody here have Tourette's? And it was like this family of four, and the dad like got up very quickly and was like, yes, do you have a problem? And
you're like, not a problem,
but you're right, but actually, and like, because he was so used to having to stand up for his family and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, that was a very good experience of like being able to like connect with his family. And I think it was like a senior in high school girl who had Tourette's, and it was it was really fun to connect with that family. And I like gave them my number, and it's like, oh,
you
call me.
probably like made their day.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I never heard from them again, but whatever.
That's very cool. So a couple of the things that I hope this podcast does, in our little tiny corner of the world. Yeah. One is that, people who are listening, when they're going through something tough, similar or dissimilar, that they would, feel some sense of encouragement or see some kind of path, or maybe just even one stepping stone from hearing your experiences of like, okay, like, I could try this, or I could move forward here. But I think the other hope that I really have deep in my heart is that for people who don't know anybody, will never experience anything like this, that hearing experiences, like, maybe it just kind of raises the collective empathy in the world a little bit, because I think anytime you personalize something and humanize something, then it just kind of like makes a picture, and it makes a little bit of sense. Right. So for you, what would you hope that people listening, would kind of walk away with, whether they relate or don't relate?
Yeah. I think so I think the easy answer would be to say like, oh, now you know about Tourette's. And
Yeah. High five.
yes.
Yeah.
Also it's like sort of rare and obscure and individualized enough that I like just kind of I wouldn't ever assume that people would be able to recognize it in the wild. You know what I mean? I don't think we need to get to that place, but I think that what is a helpful takeaway is just to like recognize that like if somebody does something funky or does something weird, of like just knowing that there could be something going on, or something like that, or something or whatever. Like not every little blink was intentional, or every that
every word said,
right, because like how many people saw me in the grocery store saying faggot and thought, oh, that's clearly involuntary.
Right.
No,
right.
I'm sure that asshole.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so, in that sense of like, being able to see like, okay, what
are the other options things could be when you encounter something that doesn't make sense to you?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And like, do we need to go around assuming that everybody who says something bizarre has Tourette's? No, we don't need to do that. But just like at least hold space for the possibility that something unexpected is going on. So.
Yeah, I like that. Was it Walt Whitman who said, be curious, not judgmental, or something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think that's a lovely thing to think about. It's just seems like it's human nature to look around with like a judgmental, evaluative like eye, and it doesn't make us happier because whatever we're saying to other people or think about other people, 100% we're saying that and thinking about ourselves. Like you can't judge the world and not judge yourself. And so maybe it kind of noticing, what do I think about other people when they seem a little different or something happens that I don't understand? Where is that coming from? Kind of that deep work that we were talking about before it started of, being able to kind of look inside and say, okay, how do I view myself? And am I at peace with myself if I'm, at war with strangers?
Yeah. And, no.
Yeah. So is there anything like that you've experienced that was helpful or unhelpful when you've had, a bout, if you were, or a flare up, or things that happen that draw attention?
Yeah. Different things. I mean, I think having the words and being able to figure out how to deliver the spiel in a way that made sense for me.
Yeah.
In certain situations, having people who could just sort of be with me.
Yeah.
I know of a story of, I think it was in Wisconsin or something, but like somebody had, a white guy had a tick to say the N-word.
Oh,
and so kind of whoever, I don't know who organized this, but like got him introduced with, to some pretty well-known black football players, big dudes who walked around with him the first week or something like that. And just sort of like,
what an ally.
Yeah. Just like provided this companionship. And
it's that feedback loop, right? Because now you're with them.
Right. Now I've got people. And now I know people.
Decrease it and,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, does it solve the problem? Of course not. But it provides some support and it provides some additional allyship and I think those are two sides of the same coin of being able to connect with people and in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much because I think that people, even well-meaning people, don't know what to say or what to do, and sometimes you don't need to say or do anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just be present, and that is often more helpful than what we end up saying.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. Michael, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thanks for having me.
To me.
Yeah.
I'll tell everybody I was a little nervous, and I told Michael this because I was like, I just want to do this subject justice and this conversation justice, and so I'm so grateful that you I don't know, that you've done the work so that you can be in these spaces, having these conversations. And I'm going to get a little emotional because I think that there's so many people who maybe don't have that voice or aren't at that place, whether it's Tourette's or something else. And to be able to see somebody able to like sit so comfortably in, you know, these conversations, I think it does map a lot of hope. And I think it is such a big invitation. So take your 10 seconds, guys. Take your 10 seconds when you need them. And I just want to thank everybody for listening today. You know, as you're listening, hopefully you're finding some things that are helpful for you or somebody that you know. But even if not, just making spaces in your life where your stories can be held because you deserve support too. We will see you next time on How Would You Rate Your Pain? Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for listening to How Would You Rate Your Pain? Please subscribe on your favorite listening platform so you never miss an episode. And if this show made you think of someone, please share it with them to help us grow. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Bartell. You can find me on Instagram at the_happy_therapist_. This show is not intended as medical advice and should not take the place of therapy or other mental health services. Please consult with your doctor or mental health provider about your own health. You deserve all the support. How Would You Rate Your Pain is co-produced by Wavelength Studios and Chattanooga Podcast Studios and is part of the Podnuga Network. Graphic design provided by Josh Wilhelm at JW Creates and music by Michael Crosa. I'm Dr. Tiffany Bartell. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time right here on How Would You Rate Your Pain?